Good evening. My name is Mark Sanger here at WSIC. Appreciate you all being with us. We have our political forum, the WSIC and Lake Norman Chamber Political Forum here this evening, and want to welcome in Bill Russell with the Lake Norman Chamber and thank him for working with us on this forum.
Thank you, Mark. You know, we've been doing this for 25 years, and this is the first virtual program that we had. It's not the first partnership, though, with WSIC.
Yeah, and we had done a small business forum back at the beginning of COVID, so we're very privileged and thankful to have everybody here tonight. We have with us from the Charlotte Observer, we have Jim. Jim Morrell is the political correspondent there at the Charlotte Observer. And Bill, go ahead and tell us a little bit more about Jim and how the event this evening is going to be working.
Well, he's also a contributor with Off the Record, which is a North Carolina Public Affairs program on WTVI in Charlotte. Tonight's program, again, we're very fortunate to be able to have Jim, and we've got some procedures that he's going to go over with each of the candidates. We have the Mecklenburg County Commissioner District 1 race. We also have House number 98, and we also have Senate number 41 for North Carolina.
Yep, and just to give you the rundown there, we have Elaine Powell is the Democrat in the County District 1 and Jim Puckett, the Republican. We also then have Christy Clark, the Democrat, and John Bradford, the Republican, and that is the District 98. And then in District 41 for the NC Senate is Natasha Marcus is with us tonight.
Right. Chris Cole with the Constitution Party couldn't be with us this evening, so we are not going to be able to have Chris, but we're very excited to have Natasha.
Yeah. So the way this is going to work out is we have Jim with us. And Jim, how are things going tonight? How are things at the politically minded Jim? How are you tonight?
Great. Today was the first day of early voting, and there were lines all over the county. I went out to a couple places this morning, and people were waiting in line for 2 hours in some places. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, it is.
People really care about this.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the early voter numbers for the numbers of registration, how high it has gone up this year. Pretty substantial numbers we're seeing.
Yeah, registration's up, and 500,000 people voted by absentee already.
Wow.
I think another 600,000 have applied for absentee ballots. So people really care about the election.
That's right. Well, Bill, one of the things that I know you and I talk quite a bit about is how can we involve people? And Jim, being a writer for the Charlotte Observer, he knows when he hits a chord with someone, I would think, when you write something and get some attention, don't you, Jim?
Yeah, sometimes it's the wrong kind of attention, but we always get attention sometimes.
The only kind of bad attention is no attention, right? Well, Bill, we appreciate you being with us. And, as we're trying to educate the voters out there and our communities, because these votes really matter, these races matter, give us a little bit about our first here with the Mecklenburg County District 1. Tell us a little about that area.
Well, there's a lot of issues that we need to cover, and certainly the COVID and the pandemic, all of our businesses having gone through now phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, the stay-at-home order. When this first got issued, and we were having a lot of calls to the Chamber of Commerce going, are we an essential business? And I said every business is an essential business, but we're starting to see some rebound with our business community, and we appreciate all of our elected officials and how hard they're working to get those businesses back up. So we're really looking forward to their responses. This is an important issue. So our Mecklenburg County at large and Mecklenburg County District 1.
Mm-hmm. And when you see over the years, Bill, with the different races, different turnouts, different philosophies and things like that, what would you say to the voter? What are some key elements that they should be listening for that you see play out after someone gets elected?
Well, certainly the impact that they're going to have on their business. A lot of our on a local level, the zoning issues that they have, and certainly on a county, healthcare, the education. Education is going to be profound. So, how we're going to be responding to the pandemic now and in the future. So those are all issues that are going to be paramount to business.
Mm-hmm. And so, Jim, I wanted to ask you quickly, what about you? You've been reporting on politics for quite a long time, and I've jokingly talked to you about Jim has behind him a Dukakis poster. We've had some fun, talking about that. But what do you see from these forums? What should people be listening for? What are some of the key things that you might be talking to them about this evening?
Well, I think you hit on a couple, that you can't, COVID is obviously an issue that sort of spans all races from Mecklenburg County to Raleigh. There's a lot of decisions and a lot of controversies about that, but there are a lot of things. And I think that races like the county commission race and the state house race from North Mecklenburg and all over really make a difference. They make a difference on people's pocketbooks and where your kids are going to school and how their education goes. So these are really important races. We hear all the time about the presidential race and the Senate race, but these are the ones that shouldn't get overlooked.
Jim, for our candidates and for the listeners at home, you want to go ahead and tell what are the procedures tonight and how long they have to respond to questions?
Yeah, let me go over the ground rules. Every candidate will have a 1-minute opening statement and a 2-minute closing statement, and we'll alternate between you on those. And then each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. And Bill will let you know when your time is almost up with a yellow card. He'll hold up. And when he holds up a red card, that means that your time is over. So why don't we just get into it? And let's start with the opening statement from Commissioner Powell. And then the closing statements will start with Mr. Puckett. So Elaine, you want to go ahead?
Sure. My name is Elaine Powell. I am the County Commissioner for District 1, and I moved here in 1986 to work with the Sisters of Mercy. We opened Mercy Hospital South back when Pineville was in the middle of nowhere. Since 1989, I've been serving the community in a variety of roles, starting out as a community partner at Eastway Middle School and continuing on to be appointed to different advisory boards and commissions for Mecklenburg County since 2001. So I've been around for longer than 31 years, but a community volunteer and very involved for 31 years. And it's just part of how I was raised, really. Community service was an expectation. So before I ever had my driver's license, I was volunteering with children who had Down syndrome and volunteering at an orthopedic hospital for children who, like, we would play Velcro checkers and different kinds of games with the children who had orthopedic injuries so that we could help them recover. It's just part of my life. I never imagined that I would grow up and run for office. I never even considered it until I was older than 50. So I am running because I care. And I feel like we need elected leadership who cares and who's willing to do the hard work that it takes and who is respectful of others and listens well. And I'm extremely good at listening. And I'll just stop there because I think my 1 minute is up, but hopefully you'll learn more about me as the night goes on. Thank you.
Elena.
Mr. Puckett?
I was going to say, if Bill's going to hold up a card, we need to be able to see Bill. How that technology works, but at the moment he's not on the screen. So I'll start my minute now. I'm Jim Puckett. I have served representing District 1 off and on since 1997. I started with the Mecklenburg County Board of Education, served a term there. I went on the Board of County Commission for 6 years. I was off for 8 years. I was back for 4 years. I've been off for 2 years. I hope to be back on for at least 2 years. I'm a small business owner. I was the original chairman of the Central Iowa Economic Development Commission. I have, been extraordinarily involved in what happens in North Mecklenburg, particularly from a business perspective. Been part of the I-77 debacle that we dealt with as a citizen, not as a county commissioner. But I look forward to serving again. I've been a very vocal proponent of North Mecklenburg, and I'm not ashamed to do that.
Thanks, guys. Before we start talking about issues, I wanted to ask you all, since
You froze. Elaine, can you hear him?
No, he's frozen on.
why do you think it's a good thing? Why should we have Republicans on the Board of Commissioners?
Jim, you were completely frozen during that entire time. Never heard a word.
Oh, sorry. I'll start over. Since 2018, the Board of Commissioners has been all Democratic. Jim, let's go to you. Why is that not a good thing? Why is that not a good thing for the county to have a Board of Commissioners that's all of one party? And Elaine, you can talk about why it might be good.
Well, the clear issue is you don't hear both sides of the debate. You don't force the commissioners to be public about what they've done. We've gone through 2 budget cycles where the board essentially negotiated the budget in private. The first time was illegally done via emails. The second time it was done as an add-on to a motion. So we didn't hear at the dais the night of the vote how the money was going to be spent, what the money was going to happen. I have been very successful over 20-year career being in the minority to change much of what's happened in the community just because we've been able to have a debate, and in the course of that debate with Republicans debating Democrats have changed minds. I've changed Democratic minds. I've changed Republican minds. Monopolies are bad. Monopolies are, I don't think anybody really needs to think much more than that. One side of the issue just doesn't serve anyone. A Republican monopoly would be equally as bad and equally as big a disservice to the county. So I think you need to have both sides so you make sure you hear both sides of the argument.
Okay, time, Jim. And we're working on that issue of the 4th camera.
Elaine, do you feel that you all have been able to hear both sides and consider both sides with one party in control?
I know that it's easier for some commissioners to hear both sides, and I am one of them. It's very, I mean, I seek that. Like, I want to know different perspectives so that we can make the best choice. And you have to hear multiple perspectives to make a strong choice that is going to make a difference in the world. You can't just hear one side. So you have to hear multiple sides. So I understand the argument, but there are some very, I mean, we're diverse Democrats. We're very different, and our priorities are not all exact. Like, some people feel much more strongly about affordable housing than they do about the other priorities. And so we have to work together on the ones that we identified as the top 5. But we are diverse Democrats, and diversity is important to me. There was a huge flood in my district early on when I was sworn in. And I remember going to the neighborhood and walking up to someone and introducing myself and asking him how he was. And he says, first thing he says is, "I didn't vote for you." And I said, "I'm not here for your vote. I'm here because I represent you, whether you voted for me or not." And that is a really important part of this interview for me, because I represent every single person that is watching from District 1. And I want to hear your perspective. And if you disagree with something, it is easy to find my government contact information. All you have to do is Google Elaine Powell Mecklenburg. And I want to hear your point of view. And I keep showing up. I just keep showing up. When I come to places where, where people prefer my opponent, that's okay.
Time, Elaine.
I am the commissioner, and I want to hear different perspectives. So it's important to me. Thank you. Elaine, let's stay with you. Let's go to a question about the pandemic. The coronavirus obviously has been the overriding issue of the year and the effect it's had on public health and the economy. Do you support the restrictions imposed by Health Director Gibby Harris and by the governor on restrictions on mass gatherings and on businesses? Where do you stand on that? I support the masks. I am still confused by some of the executive orders. If you look at each one individually, and I don't want to be disrespectful, because there's a reason for the executive orders. There's reasoning behind all of them. But sometimes they just don't seem logical when one business can open at a certain percentage and another business can only open at 30%. And that business is outdoors all the time. And so, but because we get feedback and we hear from people who are upset about it doesn't make sense, I forward all of that information to the director of public health and also to the governor. Because I do support the mask mandate, but the other ones, some of them they're hard.
And the goal is to protect public health. And I think we have to remember that we're trying to protect public health. So if you have an issue with something, like I've heard from a lot of gym owners and a lot of bar owners, especially this Zach Medford, he was so respectful in the way that he approached us. So it's much easier to hear what you're upset about when you say it in a nice way and you do it the right way. So we're
Time, Elaine.
trying to work through some of the things that don't make sense, but it takes longer than people want it to. And I understand that frustration. Thank you.
Jim, what about you? Do you support the restrictions from the county health director and from the governor?
Well, I'll begin out by saying it was interesting because Elaine voted against the mandate for having masks inside, but voted for the mandate to having masks outside. So I'm not sure exactly where she stood, and I understand her changes on that some. The problem I have is I don't know who to listen to. The biggest concern I had when I was on the county commission last time was the lack of a legitimate board of health. That's who I'd like to have giving us advice. If a board of health that was consisted of doctors and dentists and veterinarians and health professionals were guiding the health department, then I'd be far more comfortable taking the advice. But when the advice comes from our health director, who has a degree in nursing and public health, and her only boss is the county manager who's has a finance background, I don't feel comfortable taking any of that advice. So, I'm a small business. We've been operating the entire. We have worked within mask and without mask because we're in construction sites. So we wear masks. My guys wear masks on the job just to protect others. But it is, from an economic point of view, the lack of clarity and the lack of logic, I think, is more confusing and does as much harm as good.
I want to get to the Board of Health issue in a second, but first I want to ask you, and we'll start with Jim, would you support further restrictions to control the virus and even more a continued mask mandate from the governor, from Gibby Harris, or anybody?
No, I actually think that the public has a pretty good feel now for what is and isn't needed. I think small businesses, large businesses, medium-sized businesses, manufacturing to construction have started to understand kind of what they've got to do. They know they need to protect their customers. That's where the revenue comes from. They know they need to protect their employees. That's the only way they can service their customers. So no, I don't think we need to have greater or more masks. I think we need to start opening the economy back up, because I think we are quickly reaching that point where the other areas, both mental health and other health issues, are starting to have as big an impact as COVID.
Elaine, what about you? Would you favor further restrictions or a longer mask mandate?
Well, when these decisions are made, when the mandates come through, and the reason that I voted no for the first time is because I wanted unity with the towns. I wanted it to be all Mecklenburg County that agreed on it. And I wanted us to have meetings with the towns because there was resistance. And I thought we need to work together towards solutions. So I was trying that. And then I realized that some people wouldn't budge on it. And I thought, well, we got clarity. I asked for clarity. We got it, and we moved forward. And I'm happy for that. So, but nobody called to ask me. Nobody called to ask, why did you vote that way, or why did you switch your vote? But I support the mask mandate. Gibby, the director of public health, consults with many multiple healthcare providers. It's not like she just sits in the office by herself and decides. And so I went to the Emergency Operations Center to see how all these decisions are made. So they're made with many, many people. And she is the incident commander. If she thought, with all of the experts, that we needed something further, I would support that. But I don't think that will be the case because of the feedback that we are giving, that we're hearing from business owners, especially small business owners. She has more of an idea after all these months of exactly what Jim Puckett was talking about. She has more of an idea of the impact. And so how can we do it together so that businesses can open safely? And so we're working with some. we're working with businesses in Huntersville to do that. Like, how can we go forward safely?
Let me follow up on what Jim was talking about. Elaine, right now the commissioners, you commissioners are in effect the Board of Health. Should there be an independent Board of Health, and what would you do to bring that about if you think there should be?
It's my understanding, I did not go back and watch the old meetings from prior to me being elected, but I have heard Jim talk about this before, and I'm agreeable to exploring that. Like, I have no resistance to that. But when it was brought up, there were only 2 commissioners that had any interest in it. And so it takes 5. It takes 5 commissioners to move forward. I am on the Public Health Committee. And so, I can ask more questions about it, but I have not received, again, like, there's a formal way to contact your commissioner. I have not received any plea for that. I just hear Jim talk about it. So, it was kind of, I don't know what to call it. Like, if only 2 commissioners are interested in pursuing that, it can't happen. You need 5. So I'm open to it. I think it makes sense to, if the public wants to know who is making recommendations to the public health director. And I think if that puts the public at ease, I'm totally okay with that. Thank you.
Jim, you obviously want an independent Board of Health. How would you bring it about, especially if Democrats control the board?
Well, Elaine is wrong. When I last served on it, it took months, but I convinced the board to have a unanimous vote to form an ad hoc committee to investigate reconstituting the Board of Health. All the Democrats, all the Republicans finally agreed to investigate that. The unfortunate thing was, just, I think a couple of weeks after that vote, Dina DiOrio's husband was found to have stage 4 cancer. She took a sabbatical and then she took off. And I did not think, although it probably would have been politically wise on my part, I did not think it was wise to investigate such a large change in policy without the county manager being a part of it. Unfortunately, by the time the county manager came back, we had an election. I was not part of that. Elaine agreed in a debate when we were running for office with that notion, could have very easily picked up the mantle of an ad hoc committee and investigated it. When you have the director of the Board of Health, for example, apologizing for mishandling the way they handled COVID with nursing homes, that's the type of issue I think that a legitimate Board of Health would have seen early on. And by the way, the Board of Health in every county except for 2 in North Carolina hires, fires, and manages the health director. They're the ones in charge, not the county commission. Here, it's not even the county commission anymore. It's just the county manager.
There's a lot more we could talk about healthcare and coronavirus, but let me move on. Let's talk about schools. CMS, the county, as you know, is the biggest funder of Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools and after the state. And CMS is phasing in the reentry of students into the classroom. Are they going too fast or not fast enough? Jim, let's start with you.
They're not going fast enough. I actually applaud the county. The county went forward with their pre-K program. It's a program I don't particularly support. However, having done it, I think they're right in providing it. If you look in South Carolina, there are multiple school districts that are already in play. Parents have got to be able to get back to work. There's a way to manage that. I understand the challenge with CMS. They're so large. We can talk about that being a problem later, but I do think they need to be back in school. I think we should have instituted that way earlier. They had months to decide how to do that. There were plenty of other districts that had already figured out how to do that. And I encourage them to do it now. They need to do it much quicker. They clearly have the resources to take care of it. And this is an issue that's going to be ongoing. So, we're gonna have to open them up sooner or later. I think sooner is better.
Elaine, what about you? Are they going too fast or not fast enough to get the kids back in classrooms?
Well, from my point of view, this is really hard on families. And so it's hard to know. Like they're going, here we are in a global pandemic. We've never faced anything like this. They're trying to do it safely and slowly so that not only are the students protected, but the people that interact with students, the teachers, everyone. So I think they're just trying to be cautious and protect everyone's health and safety. But at the same time, it's true, mental health is suffering and they're losing time that can never be made up, especially with the young children. So I'm glad they're starting with the young ones first, but it does seem, and I don't have any authority over the pace, but it does seem very slow. And so, I hope the other day our positivity rate was 4.5%. I hope it continues to go down so that we can increase the pace, because that is an option. It's really taking a toll. And so it's hard. I understand the reasoning. It's just, we really want to protect public health and safety more than anything else, and trying to do it the smart way and be respectful of staff also. And the multi-generational families that these children go home to. Thank you.
Elaine, let's stay with you. Speaking of schools, would you support breaking up CMS and creating a separate district for North Mecklenburg? Elaine?
So the only person that has ever emailed me about that is Jim. He's the only person that ever emailed me to ask me about this. So I attended the meetings to listen to the community to see if that was something that I wanted to hear. What does the community say? And so I represent the people, and I represent the people, not my own opinion. And so there has not been any push for that. So it's not something I can say that I support. I do understand why people look at that, but at this point, I don't hear any community outcry for breaking away.
Jim,
And I'm fine.
Jim, you must support that. What do you think?
I do. And so, well, let me back up and say, I have clearly heard that from many, many, many people since 1997. I've been involved in talking about this for 23 years. I was instrumental in getting the municipal charter school bill to include Huntersville and Cornelius. There were two commissions, one in Huntersville and one in Cornelius, that both spent almost 9 months investigating municipal charter schools. Both of them came out with varying views on the municipal charter schools, but both commissions, after hearing from experts and citizens and engagement, public hearings, overwhelmingly supported the idea of breaking up into a smaller LEA, a smaller school district. There were people who came and said they didn't like the idea of a charter school. Almost unanimously, the people who spoke, with the exception of, I think, 2 people, said they didn't necessarily, people would say, I don't support the charter school, but I do support a smaller school district. CMS is way too large. It's not responsive enough. It has outgrown itself. I speak as a person who served on the Board of Education, who served on the board of a charter school, and who had a neighbor who was one of the first people to do software for homeschooling. So I'm pretty deep into that. And yes, I do think that's a wise thing to do. And I will tell you that the public, it's talked to me, and there's lots of them, and they still do, at least support a serious investigation into that. We should at least investigate it. It just makes sense to me.
Thank you. Let's switch to the environment real quick. North Mecklenburg has had some serious environmental issues, as you know. First, there was coal ash, and most recently, there was a Colonial Pipeline spill. Does the county have a role in ameliorating these kind of problems or making sure they don't happen again? Jim, your turn.
To me first?
Yeah.
Yeah, you broke up there for a second. Yeah, absolutely. We're in charge of environmental services. So we have both an oversight, and I think we do have to bring, we are the people that have to bring local pressure to bear against that. And our job is to regulate. I'm a free market guy, but I absolutely believe in the power of government to regulate that free market. And so we need to, to make sure we investigate that. We need to make sure that we don't kind of kowtow to the people that are in power. Montgomery County is a unique spot in that we're the home to Duke Energy. There are an awful lot of politicians who got elected with money from Duke Energy. And so I think sometimes we've been a little, Republicans maybe leading the pack above Democrats, a little reluctant to jump on that. But I think we absolutely have to. If we don't, I don't know who isn't. And we at least need to be the local contact to whatever state and federal investigation needs to happen.
Elaine?
People expect their elected leaders to protect natural resources, to protect air, water supply, all of it. They expect it. They don't pay a lot of attention to it. But if something goes wrong, it's serious. And so since the first, I think 3 days after the spill, I got contacted and I went on site to see it. I wanted to see what happened and were all the safety wear that you have to wear to go see it, and learn as much as I could learn about what they thought caused it. And I have been paying very close attention to it the whole time because it's in one of our nature preserves. And so not only is it in a nature preserve, it's one of the largest spills in the history of North Carolina. It's almost 300,000 gallons at this point. They're still extracting petroleum from the earth. This impacts groundwater. And so we have all of these experts working. We have stormwater services, public health has groundwater experts. We have one of the best hydrogeologists in the nation. So I have been keeping communication with all of the people at Louisa and the Mecklenburg County part of knowing what's going on. But Department of Environmental Quality is in charge of this at this time, and also working with EPA. So there are 3 government entities working with this. But because it's in ETJ and because it's a Mecklenburg County owned property, I'm just keeping the whole Environmental Stewardship Committee up to date on what's happening there. But I can't tell you how much I believe that elected leaders should have some clue about what's going on with the environment, because so many decisions are made with economic pressure that are harmful to the environment. But because it's such a great benefit economically, it's just discounted and dismissed of the harm to the environment. So it's something that I bring to this role, a strong advocate for making sure that for the next few decades that it's going to take for remediation efforts, that Colonial does what they have to do to make this right.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question before your closing statements. And Elaine, let me start with you with a question. You've both been on the commission. Can you name 2 things that you've been responsible for, that you were directly responsible for, 2 accomplishments? And Elaine, why don't we start with you again?
Well, let me start with my number 1 happiest, best day of being a county commissioner. It was March 11th, 2020. And if you know anything about me, I am persistent, tenacious. I'm not giving up. There's a reason I've been here doing this work for 31 years. So I reached out to Gaston County Chairman several times to have a meeting because I was concerned about, we lost the Mountain Island Lake Marine Commission, and it's our drinking water. We need to have a commission. And so I reached out several times, and he was really busy because this job is busy and we're busy all the time. And so I thought, I'm not giving up. I'm going to call him. So I had a meeting with him in finally got a meeting with him November 2019, and had a really long, excellent meeting with him. We are different parties, but we talked about our shared priorities. And when we were done, we had this idea, like, we need to bring our boards together. We brought the entire Gaston County board together with the entire Mecklenburg County board to discuss shared priorities. We didn't talk about what we don't agree on. We didn't put each other in boxes. We talked about shared priorities and how can we serve the community that we all love the best. And it was the best day of being a county commissioner, because I thought I was the start of that. And I felt like I made a difference. And then COVID happened, and so we fell behind on that. But I my persistence will not sway. I'm still going to move forward with that. And the other thing is I formed an environmental stewardship committee. I asked for that before I was even sworn in, and my colleagues unanimously supported that. And now I chair the environmental stewardship committee. And the other thing is we changed public engagement for the budget. We changed it. It used to be the county manager would present her budget and then the public could comment on it. And like, what the heck is that? So now we take community input before we even go to our budget retreat. And I changed that quickly with the support of my colleagues, because you do nothing on the commission alone. You have to be a person who works well with others. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Puckett, former Commissioner Puckett, name a couple things that you did that you were personally responsible for when you were on the commission.
Led the charge to renegotiate and get out of giving away Memorial Stadium to the Smiths for Major League Soccer. By the way, my opponent was the chair of the Park and Rec Department at the time and heard nothing until we got that done. Yes, she's happy that I apparently got that done because I changed the vote of a majority Democrats. I was the person who insisted that we have an investigation into the health department, which ultimately led to the removal or the resignation of a very ineffective director of health. I'm the person who saved the Waymer Center in Huntersville. It was slated to be demolished, again, under the leadership, under the time when my opponent was in charge of Park and Rec. Saved it, kept it from being demolished, got $2 million to renovate it. I'm the guy who ended up getting the tax department to now, when you get your tax bill, you know to the penny how much, where your taxes are going, individual taxes are going. I could go on and on and on. We're talking about environmental services. Parks, Helms, and I were the ones that made developers protect and measure water quality. They have to pay for it at the Palisades on Lake Wiley forever. So those are the ones that I initiated and got through. There's a whole lot that I tried to, as a minority, I probably didn't.
Okay, well,
I want to thank him for the Memorial Stadium, because that was awesome.
Thank you.
There you go. Unsolicited tribute. Let's go into closing statements now. You each have, I think, 2 minutes for a closing statement, and Mr. Puckett, we'll start with you this time, and then Elaine.
And I probably won't take 2 minutes. I've served the people of District 1 off and on since 1997. I am very proud of the fact that I'm a descendant of 2 signers of the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. My family showed up here. Jim Puckett showed up here in 1755. I tell people that I've got the DNA of revolutionaries who don't like big oppressive government. So sometimes I just can't help myself. I am a strong advocate. The paper has endorsed me and not endorsed me. At one point, they talked about being one of the stronger advocates for people of District 1. I'm very vocal. I do believe in the bully pulpit, particularly when you're in the minority. I think individual commissioners, if they have the skill set and the determination, can sway any board. And I've been successful in doing that. Like my opponent, I served as the vice chair, but I served as the vice chair when there were 6 Democrats and 3 Republicans. So I was very proud of that. And I have to give some credit to the 2 Democrats that felt it was important to have that bipartisanship. That's very similar to why I'm running again. You started off by saying, why should there be Republicans? There are Democrats who also believe that we're best served when everyone is at the table bringing their best ideas and debating them. So I hope that I get another chance to serve again. If not this way, I will do something else. I certainly don't go away, but I would like to go back. I would like to finish my work on the health department. I think the pandemic has shown us that that's a weakness we have that we have got to fix. And I'd love to pick up where I left off.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Powell, how about you?
I'll just share some personal things. I moved here to work in healthcare, and one of my main specialty area was pediatrics. And it's part of the reason that I care so deeply about environmental stewardship. So we would see different cancers with little children and mystery cancers. You don't know where they got them. But one of the things that struck me when I'd be working with the families is that the parents, quite often in the stress of all of this that their child is going through, they would fight with each other. In a time when they needed their parents to get along more than ever before, their parents were fighting. And sometimes you could hear it in the hallway. And it would break my heart. Our country is in crisis just like that. There are so many things happening right now, highlighted by COVID, that we are in crisis. We don't need leaders fighting with each other, smacking each other around, saying nasty things on social media. We need leaders who are willing to do the tough work of sitting down and listening to differences, listening to different opinions, different perspectives, and working towards solutions. I've been committed to working towards solutions all my life. I care about quality of life for everyone in Mecklenburg County. I represent every single person in District 1. I'm easy to find. I care what you think. And I plan on being your commissioner if you vote me in. Thank you.
Thanks to both of you. Again, it's been great to have you both, and it's a really important race. So people who are listening and watching, I hope you get out and vote. At that, we'll take a little break. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back, and thank our candidates there for everything. And we are going to take a break. You're listening to the Candidates Forum with WSIC and Lake Norman Chamber. And you can listen to this on 100.7 FM, 105.9 FM, AM 1400. And we are on Facebook Live this evening. And quite an interesting discussion there.
It was
Bill.
a great dialogue, and I want to thank the commissioners, the candidates running for Commissioner District 1. We had a little bit of technical difficulties. We said we were going to have the timing up on a fourth screen, and we didn't have a fourth screen, but you kept your responses fairly pithy, and so thank you very much for that. And hopefully we've got this thing fixed for the second segment.
Yeah, we should have us back on the screen on a regular basis now. So, all right, well, let's take us a quick break, and we're going to have more of the Candidates Forum coming up next. We have Christy Clark and John Bradford. They're in the wings. They're running for the North Carolina House, District 98. So we'll have them up in just a few minutes. Stay right here, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
I am chomping at the bit. I cannot wait.
We talk about the news and issues that impact people every day.
Rush Limbaugh at noon, Sean Hannity at 3 on News Talk 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
We've got a great selection of 2020 Chevrolet Spark starting at $99.88.
That's right, a brand new Chevrolet Spark for a used car price.
These are automatic and air starting at $99.88. You can't beat this deal.
Only at Randy Marion, a brand new Chevrolet Spark starting at $99.88.
Is your business growing and now you need a new and bigger building? Has your organization outgrown their facility and now it's time to expand? Do your hobbies require the need for more space? If you're paying rent, but now you want the advantages of owning, the prospect of financing, construction, and on-time completion may seem out of your reach. General Steel Corporation has the answer. A pre-engineered steel building from the General will not only look great and satisfy almost any need, but you'll save time and money. Our team will help you create your building and deliver it to your location. We offer design services to help you present your concept to board members, bankers, or for fundraising. And the General can even help with financing. General Steel is a name you know, with quality backed by a 50-year structural warranty. Call today and find out how easy it is to have the building you want. You may even save up to $20,000 with rebates. If you need space, you need the General.
Do you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS?
Then get on board with the Tax Admiral and let us steer your way to financial freedom.
The IRS is the largest collection agency in the world. They can freeze your bank accounts, seize your car, home, will garnish your paychecks and benefits.
Don't take on the IRS alone. I can fight for you using industry secrets that can help stop the IRS. I'll cut your penalties, slash your interest, and reduce your overall tax bill. Sometimes I can even get it zeroed out completely.
We're an A-rated company with over over 30 years' experience helping people clean up their mess with the IRS. And we have a 95% customer satisfaction rating.
If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS, are facing an audit, a lien, or levy, then call me right away. You're in charge with the Tax Admiral. Call me now for your free emergency consultation.
Call 800-817-3044. That's 800-817-3044.
At 28, I had struggled with opiate and meth addiction for 12 years. I lost everything, and I still thought I was in control. I did and said things that the sober me never would have done. And one day I realized I was not invincible. I was not exempt. And that's when a friend told me about Elite Rehab Placement. They found me a program that fit my needs. It was a small enough program that I could get that one-on-one attention. And they gave me the tools I needed to get sober and stay sober. And now I work for a rehab specialist. I'm the guy on the other end of the phone helping people who are just like me. And it's an honor to be able to give that gift back. And all it took was the one phone call.
Join Pastor Randy Mitchell for Salt and Light, Thursday mornings at 11 here on WSIC.
Probably our biggest burden with the Salt and Light broadcast is the need and the lack of Bible truth being put out on the airwaves as well as in the churches across America.
Salt and Light is a ministry of Temple Baptist Church, applying biblical principles to the issues we face today. Salt and Light, Thursday mornings at 11 on WSIC.
Selfless service is the principle that guides Army National Guard soldiers to be ready whenever disaster strikes. They have a stake in the well-being of the neighborhoods where they live and work. They train part-time to be ready to serve at all times. Selfless service, it's what inspires the men and women of the Army National Guard to be part of something greater than themselves. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more.
With its founding in 1947, WSIC has had nearly 70 years of history in our community. That's nearly 70 years of people behind the mics adding their own piece to this local voice. Now, it all comes together to bring you WSIC's new TV 21.2.
Good evening. Good evening. Welcome back to the Lake Norman Chamber and the WSIC Political Forum. Thank you all for being with us this evening. I'm Mark Sanger, along with Bill Russell here from the Chamber. And coming up now, we have the North Carolina House District 98. And Bill, what is that area for 98? You know exactly where that covers? I know it's been kind of a moving target sometimes.
Certainly Cornelius Davidson and Huntersville. I guess they will have our two candidates tell us, but the lines have been drawn so many times, but Cornelius Davidson and Huntersville.
Yeah, and so we have Christy Clark, the Democrat. We have John Bradford, the Republican, with us. And also along with us is Jim Morrell, the political correspondent for the
You bet. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Okay, and so just other ground rules. We have a 1-minute opening statement from each of you and a 2-minute closing statement. And as Bill said, 90 seconds to respond to a question, and he'll tell you when your time is up. And so opening statement, we'll go first to Mr. Bradford, and then Ms. Clark, you'll have the first closing statement. So John, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. So first I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce, WSIC, Jim, thanks for hosting this. I want to thank my family. They've been supportive of me for all my years of public service, both past and hopefully future too. I do want to thank Representative Clark for her public service. A lot of politicians talk about creating jobs. I'm very proud to say that I create jobs. I have 2 companies that I started right here in District 98. I didn't buy them. I didn't inherit them. I started them from zero, and I've grown them into something significant. I'm coming to you from one of my offices, in fact. I'm a proud chamber member. The American dream is alive and well. I'm an example of that. And I want to remind everyone that government runs on the money that is paid by hardworking people and business owners. And I think with COVID-19, we're going to see the greatest surgence of entrepreneurism we've ever seen in this country. And I want to continue my record as a representative that will not only make promises, but keep them.
Okay, Ms. Clark.
Yes, thank you. First, I want to say thank you to the Lake Norman Chamber for hosting this event, and to you, Jim Merle, for moderating for us, and of course to John Bradford, who has many years of service in our community and has always been there for folks. For folks who don't know me, I'm Christy Clark. As a representative, a mom, a woman with a pre-existing condition, and a co-founder of a small business. I have deep roots in this community. In my first term, I've been working with Republicans and Democrats to deliver for North Meck families, but there's still work to do. And that's why I'm running for re-election, to continue to fight for District 98. Strong public schools are important to North Meck families, including mine. During the pandemic, educators are working overtime to ensure students are safe and we have a healthy environment for them to learn. Meanwhile, our teachers continue to earn far less than national average and deserve a raise. Healthcare isn't just a talking point for me, it's personal. As a cancer survivor with pre-existing conditions, I know the importance of healthcare and its cost to our families. Expanding Medicaid is critical to provide quality, affordable healthcare for the 500,000 North Carolinians who don't have coverage. I'm proud to be one of the co-sponsors of the bipartisan COVID-19 relief bill and be a resource for families in this area, listening to public health professionals and doctors to plan and how to open our economy safely and get people back to work is the best thing we can do for our state. So thank you for hosting, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. Well, we'll get to some issues right away, but first I wanted to ask each of you, and Ms. Clark, we'll start with you. Both of you, there's a strong possibility that both of you, either of you, would be in a divided government if you get elected. Christy, for you, you would be a Democrat in a Republican-controlled legislature, and John, you would be a Republican in a Republican legislature, potentially with a Democratic governor. We don't have a budget yet this year. How do you get along? How can you be effective? And again, Christy, we'll start with you. How can you be effective in a Republican legislature?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question, because in my first term, I was a freshman legislator in a minority party and had to figure out how to navigate that situation. And, the first thing that I did was reach out to folks and build personal relationships with folks across the aisle with people who had common interests, people who are concerned about transportation, people who are concerned about public safety. I really enjoyed being on the Agriculture Committee and going deep dive in to learn about our state's biggest economy source. And I did that with Republicans. And I think that's I earned their respect because I care about the issues that they care about too. And that's what I would have to continue to do. And I would love to continue to build on those relationships and expand on those issues, like taking care of our farmers and our family farms and building up our infrastructure in this state. It's something that you can do by building relationships, and I'm proud to have done that.
John, let me ask you the same thing. You'd be a Republican potentially in a government where we have a Democratic governor, and we've seen the sort of dysfunction this year in that situation. So how could you make a difference? And how could you be effective?
Well, I've already served with a Democratic governor. My first 2 years, Cooper was in office. We have 12 members, for example, from the House of Representatives from Mecklenburg County. And it's noteworthy that every single one of them is a Democrat. And I don't think it's really healthy. We need some different perspective in there. I was the co-chair of the Mecklenburg delegation. So most of my delegation members were Democrats, and I've already exhibited on a lot of issues where I broke with party. I think I've always done a great job of trying to put my district first and always set my personal political ideology aside. I supported renewable energy, which is not always a popular place to be for Republicans, but I believe in that. I supported microbreweries and their production, which again was another issue where I broke with my party. I supported the arts and film credits to try to bring film back to North Carolina. And lastly, historic preservation credits. So I have a long history of doing what's right and trying to stay away from party. And if I'm lucky enough to go back, I'll continue doing those things.
You know, the overriding issue this year has been the pandemic and the coronavirus. Do you support the restrictions imposed by the governor on businesses and mass gatherings and all his executive orders? John, let's start with you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the governor, started like any other governor from any other state, and I think he started strong. I think he was doing the best he could, but as time went on, I think the politics came into play. I pick on bowling alleys, for example. Bowling alleys were not allowed to open, and they actually had to lawyer up and sue the state of North Carolina, and they won. And so I think we're at a point now where we need to reopen our economy. I mean, we have business. I mean, our whole economy is built on the backbone of small business owners. I know because I have 2 businesses, and we're trying to legislate a virus. You can pick this virus up at a gas pump or at a grocery store, which are all essential services. And we're trying to pick winners and losers. And the reality is it's time to reopen. Our economy needs to generate tax revenue, Jim, so that we can have essential services for our state. So I think it's time for us to reopen in a safe manner. And so where we are today, we need to, let's remove what restrictions are left and let's get back to business. We have people who can't make their paychecks. They can't afford to make payroll. They can't afford to pay their own mortgage because they are a bar versus a restaurant. And I think that's silly. You can't legislate this virus. It's time to open. It's time to reopen.
Christy, what about you?
This was an unprecedented time of, when even at the federal level, people were, our officials didn't really know what to do or how to navigate this situation. And that is, something to always keep in mind. But I'm very proud of our governor and of Secretary Mandy Cohen for the decisions they made to help keep us safe and for going out and making sure they were procuring PPE and testing supplies for our state, because we were definitely behind. And, the reality is our priority must be saving lives and managing the public health crisis. And those early proactive steps have got us to be where we're opening up in a safe way and a managed way. And that is something that's good for our economy as well. Now, do I agree with everything that happened? I don't. I think we should have had masks on earlier. And if we had masks on earlier, we would have been able to open up our economy sooner. And I had very much expressed my opinion on that to DHHS and Governor Cooper, because as you could see it happening around other states, I felt like we could have acted a little faster on that. And if we had done that, we could be opening up sooner. I certainly, as a founder of a small business, and a person who's helped a lot of small businesses get off the ground, I understand that this is critical and that we need to get these issues resolved and do it safely, but we can't do it in a way where we're causing folks to get sick or we're having hot spots and making the situation worse. We've got to be thoughtful and use the science and the data to make the decisions.
I think for the moment, North Carolina is staying fairly steady in virus cases. Other states, we've seen it go up. There's almost a second wave in some other states. How long do you, and we'll start with Christy, how long do you think the mask mandates ought to be enforced, and would you support further restrictions on opening businesses or anything?
Yeah, I do believe we need to continue with the mask mandate. I know, because I think that's what's our viral level low here. But I also don't want to go backwards. I want us to be able to continue to work on solutions that push us forward, so we can continue to open businesses and make sure that we have all the tools in place to do it safely, and we keep our communities safe and healthy. And I definitely do not want to go backwards. I want to keep working forwards until we can get everybody back up and running and back to work.
Okay, thank you, John.
Politicians need to stay out of this, and we need to let the scientists be the one that makes these decisions. So if the CDC were to come out and say we need to have a mask mandate, well, then I would support the scientists behind it. Too many politicians are throwing their opinions in there. At the end of the day, I wear a mask. I go to businesses that require masks. So Costco, as an example, was requiring a mask long before other businesses. And I'm a member of Costco, so I put my mask on. And so I do that for me. But we need to let the scientists go make this decision. And I do think it's noteworthy. We had a House Bill 536, which was a bill that would have reopened some of our bars and restaurants. And Representative Clark, you voted against that bill to reopen businesses. But then we had Senator Natasha Marcus, a Democrat colleague, who voted for the bill. So we had a unique contrast between two Democrats right here in our district. One was supporting small business, and Chris was standing in their way. And I just think that's wrong. I think it's time to put the politics aside and let's let these folks get back to business. We have businesses, Jim, right here in Cornelius that I could walk to that still are not open because the restrictions are in place and they can't get back to business.
You want to respond to that, Christy?
Yeah, I do. I'm a person who is a cancer survivor, and I have pre-existing conditions. And so I take the health and safety of others very seriously. And that's why I was not supportive of that bill, because it was too soon for us to be opening bars. And there has been multiple studies and evidence, and Secretary Manny Cohen has laid it out very clearly, that when people consume alcohol and they shout and they sing and they get close together, you're opening up the possibility for the COVID to spread. And we don't want that to happen, right? Because if we can hold off, which we did, a little bit longer, then we can open sooner. And I think that's the priority, is making sure that we're keeping our community safe. And that's washing our hands, wearing face coverings, and waiting 6 feet apart. And, I haven't been in a bar in a long time in my life, past that part of my life, but people in their 20s, that they're not going to do that. And we need to make sure that we're doing everything to keep them safe too.
Well, John, let me ask you to follow up on that. How soon should we open bars and expand the number of people that can be in businesses?
Well, let's talk about gyms, for example. The bill that Christy voted against was to reopen gyms. Every state around us had their gyms reopen. This virus doesn't know a border at South Carolina and North Carolina. The reality is we don't need politicians like Representative Clark sitting here and putting their personal feelings in the way. At the end of the day, you had a Democrat Senator, Natasha Marcus, who voted to open it because, I'll give credit where credit is due, she believed we needed to let these businesses operate. People are adults. If they want to go to a bar and they are going to follow the rules that bar owner has put in place to safety, social distance, et cetera, then we need to let the adults do that. The idea that, we should just assume, because we've had bars, by the way, and I use bars that have that classification that are over in the Burkdale area and they can't open. And these are not like college teenage bars. We're talking about real businesses who have real paychecks that they have to try to make payroll, and they have to pay their own mortgage. So I think it's a little disingenuous to kind of talk about, your personal situation. We need to think broader, and we need to think about letting people do what they think is best. Because what's going to stop you from getting it at a gas pump tomorrow? And that's really, I think, where we are right now.
And I'd like to respond to that. Secretary Mandy Cohen was very clear in the opening of gyms that it was not safe. It was not a safe environment. It would be a place where COVID would spread. And that's the advice I take. I take the advice of our public health professionals, not my own personal opinion, but the advice of her and her staff, who are worked around the clock to keep us safe in the state. And it's the same organization that had previously been attempted to be defunded in this budget that didn't pass. If we had lost the resources from those folks who would have had to be laid off, we would have been in deep trouble not having the support during COVID. And so it's, I listen to her, and she goes to the federal government and goes to the CDC and gets her advice. And that's who is guiding my opinion and my advice as well.
John, if you want to respond briefly, you can, or we'll go on to the next question.
Well, I just think it goes back to, do you believe that your elected official should be telling you if you can open your business or not? I mean, we had salons that could reopen, and that, as they should, and that's one-on-one contact, but you wouldn't let a yoga operator open because they were classified as a gym. What's the difference? If a yoga operator can have one-on-one contact, how is that different from a salon owner? It started to really show some real inconsistencies. And to me, you can't let politicians pick winners and losers. And that's really what has been going on. As a chamber member, I'm all about small business. I'm all about mature business owners and responsible Americans. I trust the American people. I trust our citizens to do what's best for them. And this idea that we're going to let our Secretary of Health make that singular decision and we hide behind it when it's in direct conflict with, by the way, with other lawmakers of the same party, such as Natasha Marcus, who voted for it, yet Christy Clark voted against it. There's a real inconsistency there. It just sounds very political.
Well, let's move on this time. As you guys know, the state is the biggest single funder of education in North Carolina. Parents all over the state are struggling with how to get their kids in school and how to get an education. They're teaching at home. They're sending kids to some schools, but not others. CMS, close to home, is phasing in a return to the classroom for students. What do each of you think? And John, we'll start with you. Is CMS doing it too quickly, not quickly enough, or what, to get kids back in the classroom?
No, I mean, it's time. It's time to, I've always believed, we've seen, Jim, we've seen parochial schools that have not closed at all. We've seen some charter schools not close at all. We've seen charter schools stay closed and start a hybrid sort of plan. I think, again, let's let the schools do what's best for them. You'll have, we need to think about the safety of our teachers too. And you have some teachers that are ready to stay in the classroom and bring the kids in. And so for parents who want to send their kids to school and for teachers that want to teach classrooms, then we should bring those two together. We've seen some real creativity, Jim, with pods popping up where parents are bringing kids to meet in certain pods because the schools were closed. So I just think we need to let the schools do what's best for their teachers and for their students. And the good news is the ship is pointed in the right direction. We are seeing schools start to reopen. School is not just about the academic portion. It's about social integration and building friendships. And there's so much that's to be learned in a school environment beyond just the actual subject. And a lot of young children need that. And so, so I think that's where we need to go. And it's long overdue. And I'm glad to see signs that a lot of that CMS is embracing that as well.
Christy, what do you think? Should kids go back into the classroom now or wait?
As we continue to push down the percentage of positive cases, I think it's showing us that we're ready to start moving into in-person instruction in the schools. And that's what the school board here has been using as their guideline. And they are following that data. And I think that shows that we are ready to start moving. Now, how fast we go and how large the classes are, I think that's something to be carefully considered to make sure that we're having enough 6-foot distance between folks and that they can wear masks and they have all the resources we need. And, I was one of the co-sponsors of the COVID bill that appropriated funds to our public schools to make sure that they had cleaning supplies and face masks and all the necessary items to open school again. And I think they have been very thoughtful and very careful, and I appreciate the hard work that they've been doing. I know it's not easy for them, and they have kids at home themselves. And when we're thinking about this, we are at a point now where we can, I think, start moving forward as long as we can keep the virus at the level we have it now.
Let me ask you about the environment, and Christy, we'll start with you. North Mecklenburg has had some serious environmental issues in the last few years: coal ash, Colonial Pipeline spill. Is the state doing enough, and what more can it do, or should it do?
Yeah, as far as coal ash is concerned, we have the Coal Ash Management Act that had been passed previously, but then also DEQ stepped in and ordered the coal ash to be relocated from the edge of the water. And I think that was an excellent preventative plan to make sure that we do not continue to have coal ash in our drinking water. And that situation with the Colonial Pipeline was astonishing to me. We had received conflicting information from them and from the neighbors in the community, and DEQ stepped in right away and started working immediately to resolve the issue and get clarification on the facts. And Senator Marcus and I were on phone calls every weekend, learning very quickly what was going on so that we could help communicate to our constituents and let them know that they were being protected and being kept safe. But the larger question is, like, what's Colonial Pipeline going to do in the future to prevent this from happening? And that's something that I, as a former quality assurance professional, have continued to ask them. What's your corrective action plan? What's your preventive action plan? I want to see it. I want to see what you're going to do to keep our community safe from this happening again.
John?
Yeah, so, I actually practiced environmental engineering for the first 5 years right out of college. So I'm no stranger to working in situations where there's hydrocarbon impact. Hydrocarbon is really petroleum. So in that space, you have these things called RP, the responsible party. And there's no doubt that there's a responsible party here, and they should be held accountable by DEQ. And the scientists and the engineers will go figure out how to remediate any impact that's been done to our soil and groundwater. And that should absolutely be the priority. We have a regulated utility system in North Carolina. We have an oligopoly, and so we have a regulated utility. And Duke should be held accountable just like anyone else. And I think they have been, and they will continue to be. They have a lot of very huge employment base right here in our town, and many people that I know, and they all want to work for an environmentally friendly and steward company. And so at the end of the day, the state just needs to lean on the scientists, make sure if there's impact, we clean it up, and then hold the responsible parties accountable. And that's not politics. That's just, very common sense stuff.
Moving back to healthcare for a minute, one of the issues that people talk about now is Medicaid expansion in North Carolina. We've been talking about that for a long time here. John, why do you think Medicaid ought to be expanded? And if not, why not?
Well, I mean, we'll have to go back to Bernie Sanders. I'll only pick on him for a moment because he wanted to expand Medicaid. And when he was asked how we were going to pay for it, he didn't have an answer. Medicaid will cost North Carolina, almost $5 billion. And you can't count on the big brother, big government to pick up the tab. North Carolina runs with about a $23 billion economy. The idea that North Carolina could have to pick up a $5 billion paycheck eventually is 25% of our budget. And we have to pay for it. I mean, at the end of the day, every decent human being wants to make sure people have health care. But there always is the looming question, how do you pay for it? And we have to be able to address that answer. Also with Medicaid for all, I'm going to do the little bunny air quotes, Medicaid for all would give coverage to very capable and competent adults who could go have jobs and get healthcare programs through their employers. But if they don't do that and just choose to stay home, then they siphon away from the system. So we need to make sure people who are getting the healthcare actually need it. And so before we just go trying to expand it, we need to really understand where we're going to pay for it. And you can only do it two ways. You either have to pay for it through reducing services, or you have to do through it by increasing taxes. And you don't want to create Medicaid for all and then create Medicare for none. So we have to either reduce services, which I don't think people want reduced services, or that means they're going to increase taxes. And that's the magic question. How are you going to pay for it?
Christy, what about you? You favor it?
Absolutely. I'm a co-sponsor of the latest bill to expand Medicaid in North Carolina because before COVID, there were 500,000 North Carolinians without access to health care. And these are folks who are working. They fall in the coverage gap. They don't make enough money to buy private insurance, and they don't make enough dollars to qualify for Medicaid. And so these are people who are already working who don't have access to health care. And we have been sending our tax dollars, we've been collecting them and sending them to other states. And it's now time for us to bring those back here. And here's a great thing about this plan that we have in place here is the hospital systems have come forward and agreed to cover the 10% that the federal government is not covering for us. So there wouldn't be any tax raises and there wouldn't be any cut in services because they are coming in and to help us out. And we hear a lot, well, what if the federal government changes it? Well, if that changes, we'll change the law and we'll make it work for our economy. What we need to do right now, when people are losing their jobs and their health care that is tied to their jobs, we need to make sure that they have access to health care during this time of a pandemic crisis.
Hey, let's talk about guns because I think this is an interesting subject for a lot of people up in North Mecklenburg. Christy, let's start with you. You used to be involved with a group in North Carolina. I think you were, if not the head of it, at least you were helping to run it. What do you think about the prospect for additional gun regulations in North Carolina? Red flag laws, for instance. What do you think about that? And what do you think about the prospect for getting it through a legislature, either a Republican legislature or a Democratic legislature?
Yeah, the two, after my experience in volunteering with Moms Demand Action, I know acutely which bills really work and have been proven to work in other states. And one of those is having a background check on every gun sold in North Carolina. And the other one is the red flag law. And both of those are ones that will keep people safe. And this has been shown over and over in states that have implemented, and the opposite in states that have repealed them, their gun violence has gotten worse. And so those two very basic things are something that like 85% of Americans agree on, those two gun laws. And so that doesn't make North Carolina any different. People here agree on it as well. And behind the scenes, when I'm talking to legislators from both sides of the aisle, especially the Republicans, especially ones who grow up as hunters or law enforcement, they understand the importance of a background check on a gun sale. And they will tell you that, and they understand it. But over half of gun violence in this nation is from suicide. And that's where the red flag law is going to come in, because it's going to help us have law enforcement or family go before a judge and temporarily remove guns from someone who is a danger to themselves or others, so that they have the opportunity to get access to the mental health care that they need. And we can do that, and we can save lives and reduce that number of gun suicides that take place in our country.
Don, what do you think?
Well, I mean,
red flag?
Well, Representative Clark is basically trying to throw our Constitution out the window here. Red flag laws, this is an agenda item from Future Now. This is the group where, Christy, you signed the pledge to defund the police and support their red flag laws. And here you are telling us right now that you support these red flag laws. It's easy to say that these red flag laws are intended for people to commit suicide, but these red flag laws are just an overreach. It's a way for someone to claim that someone could hurt them, and some judge could overreach and seize their weapon, their gun, for no reason. I mean, that's unconstitutional. We need to be very careful. And by the way, I'm not some huge gun enthusiast. I have a little gun that my dad gave me years ago, but I do believe in our Constitution, and we need to make sure that we don't have overreach here. Do I believe in background checks? Absolutely. Do I believe our sheriffs need to have a background check system that's consistent with a national background check because sheriffs know things that the national system doesn't have? Yeah, we need to bring those systems together. Absolutely. But this idea of supporting red flag laws, this is a radical agenda item. So District 98 voters, I hope you're paying attention. This will be used to come on and constitutionally seize your gun. And let's face it, folks, law-abiding citizens aren't the problem here. Criminals are going to get guns, and Representative Clark wants to take them away from you.
That's hilarious, John. I'm going to go right for it because, first of all, I have never pledged to defund the police. That is a flat out lie, and I've said it over and over again, and it has been debunked in the media multiple times, and it needs to be put to rest and stop being brought up because it's a lie and it's done. Now, secondly, there has been legislation in the Supreme Court, the Heller v. DC decision, that has in there that you can have certain restrictions on gun laws and it does not violate the Second Amendment. I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is the law of the land. It will never be repealed, and it will be part of what is in our state and our culture for all of time. However, what we can do is save lives, and we have a responsibility to do that because there are North Carolinians dying every 11 hours in this state from gun violence. And we have a responsibility to take care of that.
Hey, Jim, may I?
Yes.
Yeah. Representative Clark, I know this is a very uncomfortable topic for you, and I know you're squirming. I mean, the reality is you signed a pledge supporting a radical group and their agenda. You took a maximum campaign contribution, and when the news story broke, you didn't denounce it, you didn't return the money, and we're talking about red flag laws, which is part of their agenda, which you're sitting here talking about you support. There's no secret that you support a group that has an agenda to defund our police, and you can deny it all you want, but not only did you sign a pledge, Representative Clark, but you've actually already done it. You voted against House Bill 966, which included $60 million for our state troopers and public safety. You have already started to carry out their agenda. You are running bills with red flag laws. That was an agenda item. You are voting against a bill that has money for our state troopers. You have already effectively defunded our police. I know it's uncomfortable for you, but this is where we need to hold our elected officials accountable.
Yes,
Christy,
so,
you wanna-
yes, there's only one candidate for House District 98 who's ever voted to take away funds from law enforcement, and that's John Bradford. In the 2017 budget, Republicans voted to extremely cut down the budget for the NCDOJ, and Josh Stein said, if you do this, we will not be able to keep criminals in jail, and we will not be able to prosecute them, and we will not be able to keep tabs on bad actors in our state. And that's something that John Bradford voted for and not me. What I did, however, vote for is funding for the Viper system and fund for raises for our people who work in correctional facilities. And if I have the opportunity to raise up and support our state highway patrol, I absolutely will. I sat down with them in Huntersville and saw the situation they're in and was astonished and appalled at how few employees they have and how many more they need to keep us safe in Mecklenburg County. Sometimes there's only one state highway patrol person working at night. And that's not okay. That puts them in danger, and it puts us in danger also. And we need to do better by our state. And they asked us, can you fund us more? Can you help us change the algorithm that funds us? And you know, that wasn't me who voted that. That was Republicans who had voted for those things.
You see, Jim, the beauty,
how about a brief response?
the beauty about votes is they're trackable and accountable. I voted for the budget, which means I voted to support public safety. Representative Clark voted against the budget and voted for a variety of issues. She started her opening speech about how teachers deserve a raise, but she voted against a 4% teacher raise, not once, but twice. She voted against public safety. She's talking about Josh Stein. He's our very liberal attorney general, and talking about some quote that he said. The reality is, if you want to talk about people in jail, Representative Clark stands with letting criminals who have been arrested, who don't have citizenship, she supports releasing them back into our community. So let's talk about putting people in jail and then letting them go. Representative Clark wants to stand with illegal citizens who have committed egregious crimes and they are in jail. And Christy Clark stands with the Mecklenburg Sheriff and says, hey, get back, go all back on the street. That is preposterous. And I can't wait to hopefully get back and make sure that doesn't happen on my watch.
I have a feeling that you guys could talk about this all night. So let's just move on to one more question here. Each of you, what are your top two priorities should you get reelected? And what are the top problems in your district? John, let's start with you.
Well, I mean, we need to reopen our economy safely. We need to support our business owners right here in District 98. And so we need to do that. And we need to continue to drive our economy, which means we need to continue to look at lowering our taxes. You know, when I served for 4 consecutive years, I voted every year to lower our personal income tax, our corporate income tax. I was chairman of Reg Reform. You know, North Carolina is a very business-friendly state. And we need to keep it that way. It's why businesses want to start here. It's why they want to grow here. It's why they want to relocate here. So, and all those things are very applicable right here in District 98, because we have a lot of young entrepreneurs who want to start their businesses. And so that is my lane. For the last 2 years, well, I've been waiting for this opportunity to go back to North Carolina House. I got back to business. I started this company right behind me, and we have continued to hire. And so I will always be the voice of small business. I will not, like Representative Clark, vote against small business owners from letting you open so that you can actually make a living and pay your bills. I will never do that. And so those are the priorities that I will take to Raleigh. And I do have a big place in my heart for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, Down syndrome specifically. That's important to me. I know it's important to everyone. So people with special needs, I will continue to be their champion. And I'm going to restart that Down syndrome internship program that I started when I was in Raleigh. And I already have the next couple of interns lined up who have expressed interest. So I will do that as well.
John, thank you. Christy, your closing statement.
Well, Jim, I didn't know that was our closing statement. That was the last question.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was I got lost.
That's okay.
Chris, what are your two priorities? Then we'll get to closing statement.
We got you, Jim. Yeah, so of course, expanding Medicaid is the top priority for every Democrat who is going to go back to Raleigh, because we want to take care of the citizens of this state who cannot afford health care. It is a priority for us, and it is something that I acutely understand. I had surgery without health insurance when I was in my 20s. I was awake and was there for the whole surgery. And I know what it's like. It's terrifying, and I don't want anyone else to have to go through that. And then, the next thing that we need to do in Raleigh is we need to end gerrymandering. This is something that both parties are equal opportunity offenders on this subject, but it's time for us to come to a bipartisan agreement to end gerrymandering and have a nonpartisan independent redistricting commission come in and draw our maps for the state legislature and for the US House, and also make sure that we have transparency in involving the stakeholders, the citizens who are going to actually be living in these districts that we're drawing. And those are two priorities that I've cared deeply about and have great passion for, and I know my colleagues do as well.
Thank you. And now we'll go to closing statements. And John, why don't you go first?
Okay. Well, first, thanks for tonight. I had a nice time doing this. When I go back, I want to make sure treat everyone with respect. I want to be a person of my word. Always have been. Will continue to do that. If I make a mistake, I'll own up to it. And I think that's very important. I'll always compromise and find solutions and work together. And when I first ran for office, I promised to lower taxes. I promised to support public education and teacher pay raises. I promised to remove burdensome regulations for business owners. And I promised to support public safety. And those promises I made, I kept them. I lowered our personal income tax and corporate income tax every single year I served in Raleigh. That's undeniable. I voted 4 years in a row for teacher pay raises. In contrast with Representative Clark, she voted against pay raises. Even in her opening statement, she talked about it and she voted against it. You can't hide from your vote. It's just fact. I support regulatory reform. I was the chairman of regulatory reform. I have a history of making sure we remove burdensome regulations. And so when it comes to public safety, I will never, ever sign a pledge to support a radical group that wants to defund our police. Period. End of story. I won't take a maximum contribution, and I will always vote to support public safety. I made promises, I kept them. I want to represent all the people in District 98. I'll put my personal ideology aside, which you elected officials should. We're not getting that now, but I hope I can restore that, because this is not just about party politics. My website is electbradford.com. I look forward to serving each and every one of you once again, and I hope you'll consider me for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Christy.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. I have really appreciated the fact that the voters have gotten the opportunity to hear from both of us. This race isn't just about electing a Republican or a Democrat. This race is about electing a person who will stand up for North Mecklenburg by putting people before politics, and not someone who's going to rig the system so corporations can succeed. And I've faced many of the same challenges that people in this district have, like cancer and pre-existing conditions. So I know what they are facing when they go to sit around their kitchen table and plan out what their bills are going to be. Voters now know clearly what their choice is. They know that North Mecklenburg deserves a representative that's not only like them, but will fight for them. And they deserve a representative that will work with both Republicans and Democrats to establish long-term relationships that will benefit this district. I'm a legislator who will put the health and safety of North Meck families first and prioritize our professional teachers in public schools, and who will fight for our drinking water to stay clean. Thank you again to Lake Norman Chamber for hosting this forum, and to the voters of District 98. No matter the outcome, it has been an honor to serve you, and I will be honored to serve you again in 2021, and I will be happily there to stand up for you.
Thank you both for a very lively forum. Good to hear from both of you. And
thanks, Jim.
I think you're
Thanks,
right.
Mark. Thanks, Bill.
The voters.
Thank you, and good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good night.
This evening, and Jim Morrell with us, and quite an interesting side by side there.
Boy, wasn't it? There was certainly some distinct differences, and yeah, I enjoyed that dialogue.
Yeah, good stuff. So you're listening to 1400 WSIC in Statesville. You're also listening to 100.7 FM in Statesville, 105.9 FM in Mooresville, and also streaming tonight live on Facebook. Appreciate y'all being with us for the WSIC Lake Norman Chambers Political Forum. And we're going to come back now. We'll have one more round here. North Carolina Senate District 41. And we have Natasha Marcus. She's the Democrat, and her opponent has had something come up or something happened. He couldn't make
Chris
it tonight.
Cole couldn't be with us tonight,
Yep,
but
and,
we appreciate Natasha being with
Yep,
us.
so we're going to give Natasha that time coming up, and then we'll have more of Jim, and we'll talk a little bit with Jim at the end and kind of get his take on things too. So keep it right here. We're going to have more discussions coming up here on WSIC. Thanks for listening. We'll be right back.
Drive in luxury for less at Randy Marion Cadillac.
XT5, save up to $10,000 off MSRP during our retired courtesy car sale.
All cars have less than 6,000 miles and are loaded.
We have a great selection. Why pay more?
At Randy Marion Cadillac in Morrisville.
Now more than ever, it's critical to take charge of your own health and wellness. Fred Lowry Jr. helps you do that each week on Health Talk. Fred is a pharmacist and doctor of natural medicine, ready to help with homeopathics, herbs, and other natural health solutions. Health Talk, Mondays at 8 on WSIC.
Join Pastor Randy Mitchell for Salt and Light, Thursday mornings at 11 here on WSIC.
Probably our biggest burden with the Salt and Light broadcast is the need and the lack of Bible truth being put out on the airwaves as well as in the churches across America.
Salt and Light is a ministry of Temple Baptist Church, applying biblical principles to the issues we face today. Salt and Light, Thursday mornings at 11 on WSIC.
Do you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS?
Then get on board with the Tax Admiral and let us steer your way to financial freedom.
The IRS is the largest collection agency in the world. They can freeze your bank accounts, seize your car, home, will garnish your paychecks and benefits.
Don't take on the IRS alone. I can fight for you using industry secrets that can help stop the IRS. I'll cut your penalties, slash your interest, and reduce your overall tax bill. Sometimes I can even get it zeroed out completely.
We're an A-rated company with over 30 years experience helping people clean up their mess with the IRS. And we have a 95% customer satisfaction rating.
If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS, are facing an audit, a lien, or levy, then call me right away. You're in charge with the Tax Admiral. Call me now for your free emergency consultation.
Call 800-817-3044. That's 800-817-3044.
At 28, I had struggled with opiate and meth addiction for 12 years. I lost everything, and I still thought I was in control. I did and said things that the sober me never would have done. And one day I realized I was not invincible. I was not exempt. And that's when a friend told me about Elite Rehab Placement. They found me a program that fit my needs. It was a small enough program that I could get that one-on-one attention. And they gave me the tools I needed to get sober and stay sober. And now I work for a rehab specialist. I'm the guy on the other end of the phone helping people who are just like me. And it's an honor to be able to give that gift back. And all it took was the one phone call.
Join Pastor Randy Mitchell for Salt and Light, Thursday mornings at 11 here on WSIC.
Probably our biggest burden with the Salt and Light broadcast is the need and the lack of Bible truth being put out on the airwaves as well as in the churches across America.
Salt and Light is a ministry of Temple Baptist Church, applying biblical principles to the issues we face today. Salt and Light, Thursday mornings at 11 on WSIC.
With its founding in 1947, WSIC has had nearly 70 years of history in our community. That's nearly 70 years of people behind the mics adding their own piece to this local voice. Now, it all comes together to bring you WSIC's new TV 21.2.
Is your business growing and now you need a new and bigger building? Has your organization outgrown their facility and now it's time to expand? Do your hobbies require the need for more space? If you're paying rent, but now you want the advantages of owning, the prospect of financing, construction, and on-time completion may seem out of your reach. General Steel Corporation has the answer. A pre-engineered steel building from the General will not only look great and satisfy almost any need, but you'll save time and money. Our team will help you create your building and deliver it to your location. We offer design services to help you present your concept to board members, bankers, or for fundraising. And the General can even help with financing. General Steel is a name you know, with quality backed by a 50-year structural warranty. Call today and find out how easy it is to have the building you want. You may even save up to $20,000 with rebates. If you need space, you need the General.
Welcome back. Good evening. My name is Mark Sanger, along with you here on News Talk WSIC for the WSIC Lake Norman Chamber political forums. Appreciate you all being with us tonight and hearing some lively discussion, I guess you'd say. We have Bill Russell with us, and I would like to thank the candidates for coming out and being part of this. There's nothing better to let the public know what they really think and believe, and when you hear it from them, there's nothing better than that. So,
that was a variety of issues. That was a really good segment.
Yeah, it sure was. And Bill, how many years you been with the chamber?
25 years, Mark.
That's great.
Yeah, 25 years.
That's great. Well, you're doing a good job down there. And we also have Jim Morrell with us. And Jim is the political reporter.
Political writer for the Charlotte Observer.
For the Charlotte Observer. Appreciate that. So now what we're doing is we're going to the North Carolina Senate District 41. We're going to have just a slightly different format because Natasha's competitor didn't show up tonight. And so we're going to have Natasha Marcus on, and we're going to let Jim take it away and ask her questions and see what we can find out from her. So Natasha, welcome. And Jim, go ahead and take it away there.
Hello.
Natasha, thank you for coming. Let me just ask you generally about the pandemic and about the governor's actions about the pandemic, and what you think of that, and whether you think the restrictions are in line and the right thing to do, and whether they should be extended given what's happening with the coronavirus or what, and whether businesses should be allowed to open a little bit more liberally.
Okay, I thought I was going to do a little opening statement first, so I'll just first say I'm Natasha Marcus. This is my first term in the North Carolina Senate, representing the residents of the 3 North Mecklenburg suburbs, but also a large section of Charlotte. It's hard to describe, but I would call it North and Northwest Charlotte. It's also in my district. It's a newly drawn district for this election, so I just want to make sure people are aware that Senate districts have changed. As far as my feeling on COVID, first I feel a need to respond to what John Bradford said about me. For some reason, he was trying to misrepresent my record tonight to score points against another Democrat, Representative Christy Clark, and he was lying. And I just have to say that I did not vote to reopen gyms. I voted no, and in fact spoke against the bill to reopen gyms because that was in the middle of the summer. And our numbers were very high, and all the science told us that the respiratory droplets that are emitted when one shouts or yells or exercises, breathes heavily, are the most dangerous way to spread coronavirus. So I heard from gym owners who told me they wanted to reopen, and I had some understanding and sympathy for that. But at the same time, I had to stand firm with the governor's science-based approach. And Dr. Mandy Cohen, who told us that that is one of the riskiest behaviors. And given where we were with our numbers then, I had to vote no. And I did vote no, just like Representative Christy Clark did. And so I am angry at John Bradford for drawing me in and lying about my record on that point. I did vote to reopen restaurants, the very first restaurant reopen bill, because I had promised my local restaurants that if they brought forward a bill that allowed outdoor dining, that I would support that, because I believed that that was safe and something we could do under a science-based approach that would still control the spread of the virus not putting people at an undue risk, and allowing our businesses to stay afloat. I have friends who run restaurants, and I know how hard it is to run a restaurant. So I just wanted to be clear on my record and to state that it has always been my position that if we're going to solve our economic crisis that we are going through right now, we have to first solve our public health crisis. There are no shortcuts here. Shortcuts won't work. And the Republican approach of just reopen everything and let businesses operate and we can trust them all to just do the right thing is reckless, and it is not a solution. And the states that have moved forward too quickly with lifting all restrictions and trusting that people will just all do the right thing have really bad COVID rates, and they're having to backtrack in a lot of cases and reclose things that they did open because they realized that literally people are dying. And so I have been proud to have a governor like Governor Cooper who does the hard thing, even in an election year
when it's not popular to tell people you should be wearing a mask, and it is not popular to keep businesses closed or at reduced capacity. He doesn't want to do that, but he knows that to put public safety first is his main job. And I support him in that. And I believe that we have a fabulous person in Dr. Mandy Cohen who we should be trusting when she tells us that respiratory droplets present a huge risk and we need to protect the public against that, for example.
Hey, Senator, you're in your first term. It was a term where the legislature wasn't able to get a budget, the state wasn't able to get a budget because the legislators didn't agree with the governor didn't agree with them. Vetoes were made, they weren't always overridden. If the dynamics stay the same, if the Republicans continue to control the legislature and we have a Democratic governor, how do you see any of that changing? Are we in for another 2 years of dysfunction?
When this is my first term, so I didn't know what to expect, but I will be honest, think that we could reach some compromises. I thought that because the governor's veto now would hold, because we had broken the Republican supermajority, that Republican leadership in the General Assembly would understand that they could no longer just dictate every law and push everything through with no compromise, which is what they've been doing for the last 6 or so years. I thought that they would understand that now Democratic voices matter and we need to find some compromise. So when he first vetoed that budget, in part because it wouldn't expand Medicaid and save lives and bring jobs to North Carolina without costing any increase in taxpayer dollars, which is something I believe in very strongly that we need to get done, and it didn't give enough to teachers in public education, I thought the next step would be, let's reach a compromise. And Governor Cooper even was the first to come down with he wanted a higher teacher raise even, but he lowered the number and he said, can we agree on this? And the Republicans just absolutely refused. Now, it is my understanding, my belief, that they are going to pay at the polls for that inability and complete refusal to compromise this year. And hopefully that message will get through to them, that we need some compromise and Democratic voices are valid voices, that the people I represent who want the things that I just mentioned matter in this state as well. And Phil Berger shouldn't get to set the entire agenda.
Hey, Senator, there's a lot of issues out there, as you know, healthcare and other things. What are you hearing from voters? What do voters tell you are the top things that are important to them?
Access to affordable health care is huge. This pandemic has brought that forward like never before. It was an issue before the pandemic, of course. Just before taking my seat in the North Carolina Senate, I worked at, and previous to that was a 10-year-long volunteer at a community service center here in Davidson, where I live. And the most popular service that we provide there at the center is the free medical clinic. And that's because there are so many people, working people in North Carolina, who have no other way to see a doctor because they do not get employer-based health care. They have jobs. They're often working more than one job. But if they get sick or their family gets sick, they have to rely on a free clinic. So it's great that free clinics exist. And I, of course, support them, volunteered at them, etc. But it's not enough, because if you come down with a serious condition, you cannot go to a free clinic and expect to be treated for, let's say, breast cancer. You need health insurance for that. And so people who don't have health insurance deserve health insurance. And those of us who are lucky enough to have employer-based private health insurance, we're paying too much for what we get because of the huge amount of uncompensated care that is provided by the healthcare system to all the people who should be covered if we would expand Medicaid, like almost every other state in the nation has done except ours, and maybe, what is it now, 11 other states have refused, but that's it. Even very conservative states have done it. And so people understand this need for healthcare. They want not only their own family to have affordable healthcare, but they want the family that their children go to school with, for example, to have access to healthcare as well, because this pandemic has really pointed out that we are a community, and when any members of our community are unable to see a doctor, it impacts us all. And we got to stop thinking about healthcare as a privilege for those who have the good jobs that provide it, and think of it more like every other country in the world that we consider to be an advanced economy, and provide it for everyone.
So should you get reelected, what would be your top priorities going back?
We need to, I'm not going to repeat what I just said, but all that about healthcare, that is very top of our mind. We need better investments in public education. We have underfunded public education for years. We used to be known as the education state, and we were a leader when it came to the Teaching Fellows program. Other states modeled their Teaching Fellows program on ours because it got such great results to bring up young teachers and keep them here in our state. And now Republicans before I got there, eliminated the Teaching Fellows program completely, which was outrageous. We're finally bringing it back, but it's not nearly as robust as it should be. We have now a teacher shortage in North Carolina because we don't pay teachers enough. And the reason I voted no on the budget and the reason Representative Clark voted no on the budget is because these tiny little raises that Republican leadership keep offering to teachers every year are not good enough. We're still, after several years of these tiny raises, still in the bottom half. I think we're at 36th in the nation for teacher pay still. That's after 6 years of raises. That shows you how small those raises are. And by the way, the benefits that we give teachers are costing teachers more and more. So if you talk to teachers, they're not fooled by that talk that John Bradford said about we give teacher raises every year. Teachers know the truth, which is they're actually in real dollars earning less in most cases. There are a few years in bandwidth there for teachers that did get slight raises overall, but for the most part, particularly veteran teachers who we really rely on to teach those young teachers are making less money now than they did before, and that is unacceptable. And that's unacceptable not just to teachers, but to all the families who rely on public education. Because if we can't attract and retain the best teachers, we are not doing right by our kids, and that's important. It's important to me and it's important to my constituents. And so I'm going to keep fighting for that. Better investments in public education, including, by the way, a statewide school construction bond, which was the first press conference that I held, which was calling for that. It's been too long since we've had one. We clearly need to expand the buildings when we get to go back to school in person. The kids are asked to learn and they're crumbling. There's one in my district here in Cornelius that we just found out has black mold and other contaminants in the air. We can't allow that to happen. So investments in public education are important too.
Let me just remind the viewers and the listeners that your opponent, Christopher Cole of the Constitution Party, was not able to be here tonight, or he was invited. So let me give you the last word. Why don't you make a case for why people should vote for you?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And I am disappointed he didn't show up. We don't know why. It was sort of a last minute thing. He hasn't come to any other forums either, so I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. I will tell you, I hope you've got a little sense of what I stand for. We didn't get to talk about environmental concerns, but one of my big issues is protecting our environment against corporate polluters. So whether it's coal ash in Lake Norman or it's gasoline leaks in Huntersville, I am on it and I care, and I am not afraid of Duke Energy. I don't take money from Duke Energy or big polluters because I represent the people and our environment, and that's important to me. I've taken only one pledge the time that I have served, and that is a pledge to end gerrymandering. I believe that if we don't get rid of the map rigging that's been happening in our state over the last decade, there have been so many lawsuits. North Carolina is in the headlines for all the wrong reasons as one of the worst examples of gerrymandering. The district that I was elected on was so severely gerrymandered, it looked crazy. So I am glad we're moving in the right direction to eliminate the map rigging, because I believe that when we do that, that makes everybody feel like their vote counts again, and that representatives aren't choosing their voters instead of voters choosing their representatives. So those are some of the important things to me that I will keep fighting for. I look forward to returning to Raleigh in my position as your senator. I have prided myself on making it a priority to be available to constituents, to update them on what I'm doing. In fact, there's a Facebook post where at length I talk about why I voted no on that gym bill that I talked to you about earlier and to reopening the gyms, because I wanted my constituents to understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And some people might have disagreed with that vote, but at least I made it clear to them what my position was and why. And I think that's important. I've heard from a lot of constituents who said, I never got that kind of information before you were in that seat, Natasha, and I appreciate you telling us, even if sometimes I wish maybe you'd voted the other way, at least I understand where you're going. And in most cases, I got to say, I hear from people who think I did the right thing, and I appreciate that. I've worked very hard with constituents who need their unemployment benefits. That system has been very confusing and very frustrating, and I help people without ever asking what their party affiliation is. I have a thank you note right here. I enjoy this very much. A lovely handwritten thank you note from a constituent who let me know that she appreciated so much the way my office helped her during her time of need, that she said, you have earned my vote, even though I'm a lifelong Republican. And so that's the kind of senator I want to be. I want to help people. I want to do the right thing. And I work hard. There is no Republican in this race, as you pointed out, Jim. So it's just me or Mr. Cole. And I honestly want to say that he hasn't campaigned. He hasn't participated in any forums. He actually owes a penalty to the Board of Elections because he didn't file his year-end finance reports. And I just don't think he deserves your vote, folks. So for anyone who maybe normally wouldn't vote for a Democrat, I'm asking you to consider me and my positions. I think I'm reasonable. I think I work hard, and that I have worked to deserve your vote this time around. I have lots of great endorsements. I'm proud to be endorsed by the Charlotte Observer, by the Professional Firefighters and Paramedics Association, Equality NC, many more listed on my website. And I hope that you will send me back to Raleigh for a second term. My website's natashamarcus.com. I've got a lot on there about where I stand on a variety of issues. I don't hide from that at all. I'm proud to say what I believe. And I hope that will help people make up their vote this time around. Appreciate the time.
Senator, thank you very much. Thank you for being with us.
Sure.
And that concludes the forum.
Thank you, Natasha, and thank you to all the candidates there. And Jim, as we kind of wrap this up here, a lot of issues going back and forth here. You've got everything from the guns to the schools to, let's see, unemployment. You got the environment, different types of COVID, funding, construction, a little bit of everything there. And Jim, how do you see all this playing out? Are you a picker? Do you pick who do you think is going to end up with everything, or?
No, I'm a notoriously bad picker anyway when I do pick, but I wouldn't even try it with this. I know that the District 98 race is one of the most competitive in the state.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of attention to it. Democrats are going to try to keep it. Democrats need, I think, 6 seats to flip the House. So it's a big priority for both parties.
Yeah.
So it's a good race and a lively one, apparently.
Yeah, what did she say? 430 votes, I think, last time she said, right? It was a narrow victory there for her.
Yeah.
Very close. And Bill, what else?
Well, Senator Marcus didn't name the local agency because she didn't want to bring them into the political fray. But let me do that. The Ada Jenkins Center, if there's one agency that really touches lives across our region, they do a spectacular job. Georgia Harris just recently retired. Harold Rice has taken over. They have an outstanding staff. They're spectacular at the outreach that they do, and I agree. They're wonderful people. We also tomorrow morning have a Focus Friday at the Chamber of Commerce. Dale Falwell, who is our state treasurer, is going to be talking about the budget and the impact of COVID on that. That's at 8:30. So. If you'll call the chamber at 8 o'clock, we'll get you on that Zoom link. Otherwise, we will record that and get that out. And I wanted to leave everybody with one thought. This afternoon, I had the opportunity. We had our Junior Leadership Lake Norman, which is 20 high school juniors. They're 16 years old. And I was with Charlie Jeter, and we were talking about, and Charlie started talking about politics. And I shared with the young people that when they do reach voting age, I don't care who they vote for, what party they affiliate themselves with, whether they're Constitution or Democrat or Republican. I care, though, about how they treat somebody differently than they do. And you know, I think that's where we failed in my generation, and people a little bit older, people a little bit younger, we're treating people badly if they don't agree with us. And I hope that generation doesn't learn from us.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Well, it's important to vote. Early voting has started, and as Jim mentioned earlier, a lot of people are already out voting. The ballots are there, ready to go. So folks get out and vote and be part of this great, amazing political system we have here in the United States. Imagine there's countries that they don't get to vote.
Yeah.
You know, and we have a great privilege here in the United States to be able to do what we do. And I just want to thank all the candidates: Elaine Powell, Jim Puckett, Christy Clark, John Bradford, Natasha Marcus, and again, Jim Morrell with the Charlotte Observer. Thank you, Jim. Good job on
Jim, you did an excellent job. Thank you very much for doing that.
And Bill, before we go, what else is the Chamber going to do between now and November? You've got the youth thing going. What else is there? Anything else?
We've got a golf tournament on the 26th of this month that is completely sold out. Mm-hmm. We have an event coming up, the 0K, which is a first-time event for us, a fundraiser, that the proceeds of that are going to go to what we do with our small business assistance, but also half the proceeds are going to our foundation for so that we can put it toward diversity, inclusion, equity programming. Mm-hmm. So I hope everybody will take part in that. But we got a lot of good programs coming up, whether they're lunch and learns on a series of topics, business topics, but we've been working very hard for our local business community.
That's great. Now, Bill, you do a great job with the Chamber. We do appreciate it. And just one reminder, too, we also have coming up in the area, in the Statesville area, Iredell County, is the Dove House. Mm-hmm. And they support a lot of law enforcement and the families that are going through some tough situations with parents and children and things. And they do have a fundraiser coming up. I'd encourage you all to Google Dove House of Statesville and support their big auction this year. It's really definitely a needed thing in our community. And if you ever hear our sheriff up here, the need for the Dove House is incredible for all these young kids that are caught in the crossfire, if you call it that. So another great organization to be part of. And again, we'd like to thank all the candidates. And Jim, thank you. Natasha, thank you again for being with us. And you're listening to News Talk WSIC throughout the day. You can catch Fox News every hour on the hour. We are continuously updating all of our local news throughout the day. You can go to WSICweb.com for more local information from all the different area police departments, fire departments, and all the different types of law enforcement, of course. So we encourage you to go visit WSICweb.com and tune us in. And appreciate everybody being with us tonight. Thank you to Nikia James and also Isaiah Sanchez, our producers this evening. Appreciate all they do here at the station. And so we're going to end out with some commercials here. Y'all have a great night. Thank you again, Jim, and y'all have a good night.